Hello everybody in YouTube land. So I'm going to be going through some defensive tips and drills for characters in Street Fighter 6. Some of this is particular to Rashid, but I think more generally it's applicable to any character you're playing. So hopefully this information is useful. So I've been starting to work on using drive rush checks quite a bit more with Rashid lately, partly because it's such an incredible defensive tool that turns your defense into offense. As you can see with some of these clips, you know, it doesn't have to be just a drive rush check with like a simple light punch. You could be using his medium punch, which is really fast, to connect into all types of other hits, and even end a combo with corner carry and take someone into the corner for even a super potentially. So I got to thinking about making a video where I would talk about not just this, but what else people should be doing with Rashid and just in general in this game in terms of playing defense to put themselves in a better position to win. So when I say how to prepare for defense in this game, what I'm really saying is, you know, in order to have sort of a multifaceted defense, you really have to be able to do not just a bunch of different techniques, but you also need to really set aside time very explicitly, consciously in your mind for these different techniques that you're going to do. So that could be, you know, whether it's just anti-airing, obviously it's a big part of it, incredibly important. Whether it's fishing for anti-airs, trying to get people to preemptively jump in, as you can see here. That's another thing that Rashid can do, and all types of cool combos and supers. You know, and a lot of different things as well. You really need to set aside the time to do these things. So, you know, he's got all different types of options here, as you can see with the level 3 I just did from the combo of the level 1, setting aside time for counter DIs into whatever combos you want to go into. After that, you can see it's free damage, right? So, you know, all of these different techniques are not only going to net you offense off of your defense, but they're going to put you in the best position to win by not taking damage yourself. So the drive rush check too, as I was just talking about, you can take your defense, turn it into offense for more damage too. So what do I mean by saying you need to set aside time for these things? It means that you're not going to effectively be able to play defense by just playing offense the whole time and thinking about offense. Sometimes you're just going to have to sort of stand there in neutral and walk back and forth and wait for your opponent to do something. And so that's actually really, really important. If you're not waiting and you're setting aside time for this, if you're not doing that, then the mental stack is just going to be too big for you to be thinking about all of the defensive options that you can utilize while you're in the middle of playing offense. So yeah, you need to set aside time in the game to play offense, to do your combos, to figure out how to use the different offensive mechanics in the game, things like drive impact, how to do it most effectively, when to jump, when to do combos, when to do drive rush, and so on and so forth. But you need to set aside that time for defense. If you see that somebody's jumping in once or twice, you want to set aside that time to wait to see if they're going to jump again so you can anti-air. Same thing with drive impact. If you see that they're doing drive impact more than just once, numerous times, you want to be able to stop that. So if you're not setting aside time for defense, it's going to be very hard for you to actually play defense in the middle of playing offense. The only exception maybe is really if you're in the middle of sort of traffic trying to do combos or something, and the opponent pushes drive impact and you're in the middle of doing something, you can sort of condition yourself to press drive impact for a counter drive impact. Yeah, that's something you should be doing during offense, but in general, you should be setting aside a lot of time to actually play defense in addition to offense if you want to be successful and have a multi-faceted strategy to win. I'm also going to talk about what it is that not just you should be doing, as some of the things I just covered, but some of the things that you shouldn't be doing are just as important. One of those things I think you definitely shouldn't be doing regularly is perfect parrying anti-airs. The reason why I have said this in previous videos is that the perfect parry is radically scaled in terms of the damage that you're going to get. It's only about 10%. So you're not going to get some big combo from that. The damage is actually okay, but even if you get really good at perfect parrying, you know, jump kicks, the person you're playing against can just as easily do an empty jump and throw you, and then you're going to lose a very large amount of damage in terms of your health bar and your actual meter. So what seems like a really good option at first can actually be really badly abused if you're doing that too much. I don't really do it at all in matches. I prefer to just straight up anti-air and get that guaranteed damage, especially with Rashid, because he's got multiple ways in which you can do aerial combos, and the damage is just going to be way better than a perfect parry. So if you're playing Rashid, I don't really ever suggest doing this. I just don't think it's a very good technique for him, particularly when he's got anti-airs that involve combo damage. But just in general, it's something, if you're playing whatever character, if you want to do it, I'd say do it sparingly. Don't do it regularly, because people will just figure out really quickly how to punish this. So this is one of the things that I would generally say is a don't in terms of relying on this too much when you're playing defense. That I've mentioned in previous commentaries and videos is that you should not be relying on standing heavy kick with Rashid as an anti-air. What you can see here is that by the time you realize someone's jumping, you will oftentimes press it too late, and at best you're going to get a trade or you'll get beat out. When it comes to the anti-air, if you push it fast enough, and you have to be really fast on this, usually they've got to be way in front of you, because the hitbox for landing this, they just need to be well in front of you in order to do it. And so you'll see sometimes you can actually catch it into like a light mixer, for example. It is possible. The only time you're ever going to see me doing this in a match is if I was already preemptively pushing heavy kick standing, and then they ended up jumping and I didn't really anticipate the jump. And because I pushed it early enough, because it wasn't meant to be an anti-air, it ends up hitting them as they jump. So I think that's fine if you're doing that. If you're just using it as a poking tool and you're catching them like that, and then you want to go into a light mixer after, that's fine. But otherwise, the danger is that, you can trade or lose out to it if you push it too late. So it's not a very good anti-air. And sometimes the person, will be so far over you and above you that it just misses entirely. So you've got this problem of trades, right? You've got the problem of just getting beat out with it. And then you've got the issue of it just missing entirely and whiffing. So you can see here, as the video goes forward a little bit, right there, right? You're just missing. You're missing if the person's too far over the top of your head. So there's a lot of different problems with this, and all of which make it not an ideal anti-air at all. Another don't in terms of my playstyle and game plan is related to throw loops. So a lot of people have gotten really annoyed in this game with throw loops in the corner, because it's so easy for your opponent to do this, just throw loop over and over. And sometimes you'll hear pros say, just take the throw, because it's not as bad as other things that the opponent could do to you in the corner. If they strike you into a combo, they do a hit into a combo. I got to tell you, to be perfectly honest here, I don't agree with this at all. I think it's lame to just let someone keep throwing you over and over and over again. I think if somebody throws you once, okay, fine, they gotcha. I think if they're walking toward you a second time, you should just assume at that point that they're probably going to throw, because throw loops is a big thing in the game. And make them beat you. Don't just give them damage, because the problem with take the throw is it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Maybe other people don't agree with me here, but I feel pretty strongly about this, that you're giving, so maybe it's not as bad, you think it's 12% damage per throw, but you're taking throw after throw after throw. So by the time you get to the third or fourth throw, you're up to almost 50% damage. That cost benefit calculus is no longer the case if you keep taking the throw. You're just throwing away health, good after bad at that point. And so the way I play is, if somebody throws me once, fine, they got me with the throw. If they threw me twice, okay. But at that point, it's sort of like shame on me. I should have anticipated, after they threw me the first time, with throw loops being so strong in this game, that they were going to throw me again, and make them earn the damage. At that point, I'm gonna jump out. You might hit me with an anti-air as I jump out. You might do something else that stops me from jumping out, but damn it, you're gonna earn the extra damage. You're not getting it for free. So you'll never see me in a match taking 3 or 4 throws in a row. It's just not going to happen. If they're going to beat me, they're going to have to actually earn that damage. They're not going to get it free by just walking forward over and over and over to the point where you've given up 50% of your life willingly. So that's something I feel pretty strongly about. And I would say, if someone's going to get you with 1 throw, okay, but there's really no reason anybody should be taking more than 1 to at most 2 throws in a match. Even if you're in the corner, try to jump out. Try to do something to make them beat you. I don't recommend trying to throw tech because you're still stuck in the corner. Better to try and jump out. Or, if you feel like the person's getting egregious with the throws, they've done 2 and you think they're going to do a third, you have the potential for an EX mixer or some sort of EX reversal, depending on the character that you're playing too. Yet another don't that I've talked about in other videos is delayed throw tech. When someone goes for a strike and then they go for a throw, and you think that you've been so smart to stop them because you're anticipating the throw strike, and what you end up doing is pushing throw in advance, and it techs the throw, as you can see here. Well, why is this not good in the corner? Because you're still stuck in the corner. Better for you to try to jump out if you think that they're coming for a throw. So I just really don't recommend this at all. I don't think it's a very good option. I don't think you should be doing it. It's kind of a waste of your time and energy to be doing this in the corner. We're just going to go through all the don'ts in advance before we get to the do's, because I think that's really important. One thing that I am notorious for, and it's a really bad, obnoxious, stupid, sort of moronic thing that I do. I'm not sure where I picked it up. I wanted to play defense, and I just thought I could use this mechanic, and it's just not very good. Is don't rely very heavily, if at all, on drive reversal. The times that I do this, which is the really most annoying, is when somebody jumps in on a kick, as opposed to an anti-air. Like, this is truly stupid, because why don't you just preemptively anti-air and get the actual damage? Because drive reversal takes a lot of your bar, like 2.5 bars, and it doesn't really give you any damage, barely, because they get that damage back. If they wait long enough after the drive reversal and you don't hit them, they get the damage back to their health bar. And you could have done a not proper anti-air and got 10, 12, whatever % damage, depending on the move you were doing, or even if it was a combo. So this is really just a waste of your time. And the thing that's the most dangerous about this, outside of the fact that it's a waste of your drive gauge, and it doesn't give you any real damage, is, as you can see there, once the player sees that you do this once or twice, and this has happened to me many times, they know what you're going to do. They're not stupid, and they're just going to suss this out, and they're going to bait you, like with the double jump. They're going to double jump, and in the case of Ken here, this is already 30% damage, game over, with a heavy punch into a crouching heavy punch into the hurricane kick into the DP. This is meterless. He's got more than 30% damage just from that one mistake of you doing that drive reversal, let's say the second time, and then the player picks up on it. So yeah, this is not very good in the sense that it's very easily punished. It takes away a lot of your EX meter, and it's just not a very effective way to play the game. And it could get worse for you too. Like, Ken can link this into a level 2 as well. And this is just one example from a character of how much big boy damage they can do on you just from this alone. Looking at the link into the level 2 from the hurricane kick, you're talking about 43% damage. That's really quite incredible. You don't want to be opening yourself up for this. And so, like most people you talk to in this game who've played it for a while, they know that drive reversal is just not a very good mechanic. If you're going to use it very sparingly, and don't become predictable with it if you use it at all. A final don't on defense: don't be the goober YOLO who spams OD moves, EX, DP moves like this on block after a jump and kick, or in the corner on knockdown. There are a number of reasons why you shouldn't be doing this. One of those reasons is, as you can see here, when I'm playing a match and I see people do this is an instant eye roll, because this first time you do it, every time after that, I am just going to block instantly after the jump kick. You could be getting guaranteed damage by just doing an anti-air. You don't have to put yourself at risk like this. It's just stupid. You could be getting guaranteed damage by doing an anti-air every time someone jumps in. You don't have to be putting yourself at risk. And so if somebody knows that you're crazy like this and you're going to be doing these kinds of volatile, nutty moves, then they're just going to block. And then you're talking about here, Rashid's meterless damage is heavy punch, heavy cyclone, roll forward into heavy mixer. That's 29% damage. Why do you want to do that to yourself? 30% of your life is gone just because of one YOLO move. So, whether it's mid-screen after a jump kick, or whether it's having to do with corner carry, the same problem with corner carry, as you can see here with Rashid, is the first time that somebody does this, right? I've got a frame kill with my medium kick into a throw or a strike here, and you do that EXDP right? Now I know that that's your play style. You've given up some very valuable information. And usually when I play at this point in the game, this point in the development of this game's life, I just do after the medium mixer a jump forward heavy kick because it's actually a safe jump. So you're going to go past me if you do the EXDP anyways. And so this is extremely risky. People build into their game plan the very first time they interact with you because they don't know if you're one of these sort of goober YOLO people, if you're going to do that or not. So they'll build it into their game plan if they're smart. And if they don't, if you hit them with it once, you're never going to be able to really do it again because people are just going to start baiting you. And even if you can get them more than once with this, do you really want to make the game into a sort of guessing game between whether you're going to do an EXDP on wake up or not, and whether they're going to continue to run their offense or they're going to block and bait you in some way? You've really de-skilled the game at that point. It's just really a guessing game at that point. There's no skill involved. So really, it's just a coin flip in terms of whether you're going to win or lose. And that's not a very good way to go about playing the game because it doesn't give you very good odds for winning, right? So what you can see here is, if you play it that kind of way, so I'm going to take this person to the corner, the CPU here in this case, I'm going to do a frame kill. I am going to, after he hit me there, I'm going to do the frame kill, and then I'm going to bait him by doing a block. What can you do in this case with Rashid? You do your frame kill, you block, you do the same kind of punish, heavy punch, heavy cyclone into the roll. Not just a heavy mixer there, that's 29%, right? But you could also do more devastating things. You could go into a rolling nail, right, with a kick that finishes, and that actually cancels immediately into the level 3. And now you're talking about game over there, right? You're talking about around 50% damage. So this is one of those things that you just really don't want to be in the business of doing. I'm not going to say that you shouldn't ever EXDP on wake up. There is a time and a place for that. If a player is being way too one-dimensionally aggressive, and you feel like you just need to get them off of you, when people start doing wake up supers or wake up EX moves, EX reversals, that's understandable when someone's one-dimensionally aggressive and you want to get them off of you. Or if it's you're desperate, it's the end of the match, you've got nothing left to lose, you've lost almost all your health, you're in the corner, you want to do an EXDP, or you want to do a super. Okay, there are times and places for that, but what I have long operated under the assumption that this should be like a last resort, not a first resort. Like this is just something you're doing to try and save a round for yourself or a match. Because as you can see here, even though it's the CPU, right? Have them set on EXDP over and over when they get knocked down. All it takes is 3 of those. You're not getting a huge amount of damage for each one of those, and you're going a long way toward burning yourself out. If you get burned out in the corner like this, right? Not only can you get lit up for combos, but you find yourself more susceptible to things like bullying, drive impact, right? All of these things you're at risk for. So for all of these different reasons, an EXDP or wake up super should be your last option, not your first option in the corner. So what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about some of what I think should be the first options that you try before these more radical options if you're stuck in the corner or on wake up. So one thing that I think is a pretty good option on wake up in the corner if you get thrown or knocked down, as you can see here, is working on your perfect parry skills, whether it's holding down back and parry or tapping that as you wake up, or holding back and parry. This does involve a guess with the recent changes that Capcom made to the game where you can't just tap parry in any way and get the automatic perfect parry if you hit parry a few frames before the person hits their button, right? So obviously this loses to throw, so you don't want to become too predictable with this because you have a throw here. The person could throw a loop if they see you trying to perfect parry over and over and over. So I'm not saying this is a perfect option, but it's actually a good option if you're not spamming it, if you're doing it every so often to try and get you out of the corner. If I'm stuck in the corner, one of the first things that I'm going to try and do is at least one time I'm going to try and perfect parry because it's a relatively low risk option if you only do it once. They're not going to probably throw you if they on the very first time, unless they were already planning on throwing you. It is a little bit of a risk. They might see you parrying and they're a little bit further away and they come in and throw you, and it takes a while with the parry animation to get out of it. So it's not like infallible as a technique. It's obviously got its risks and weaknesses like any technique. But if you're doing this among a number of different options, and you're doing this, let's say once in each corner interaction, you're trying a wake up perfect parry to get yourself out of the corner, that's not bad. This is something that I think you should be working on, this kind of skill in the corner, as opposed to just doing YOLO stuff like an EX DP on wake up, because this can be a very strong game changer. Even if you're in the corner, you get the person off of you, you can push forward, and if you do the perfect parry and you do a throw reversal, right, a reverse throw, you can actually put them in the corner too and change the dynamic there. So yeah, this is an option, not without its flaws or weaknesses, but something that's better as a first sort of tool, if you're not spamming it, to actually try over some of these other options like a wake up super or a wake up EXDP. Okay, another, what I think is a pretty good technique in terms of defense in this game, especially if you're stuck in the corner, it's just to be a little patient sometimes. What you'll see sometimes is that somebody might have you in the corner, they might go for a throw, and then how many times do you see that? They walk forward and then they walk back. Well, that's a shimmy, right? They're hoping that you're going to press a button, a fast button, or a throw, and then they can punish that. But I can't tell you how many times I've seen people do the walk forward and the walk back, and they don't do anything after the opponent, and they're just waiting for you to sort of hang yourself by doing an EXDP or a super or something, and then they get a block, and then they get a free punish and free massive damage. If someone's going to do this to you, this is a big part when people rely on this really heavily. I'm not saying just a little bit of shimmying in the corner, but if you do it routinely to the point where you're almost spamming this, you're getting into sort of bulldog turtle territory where it looks like you're playing offense, but you're really just sort of turtling because you're just playing defense and waiting for them to make a mistake. I don't think there's anything wrong with shimmying. Shimmy is a really good technique that I use a decent amount in matches, but like anything in the game, you really don't want to spam this. If you do end up spamming the shimmy too much and doing this kind of fake offense in the corner, what that does is it opens up opportunities for the opponent, the person who's stuck in the corner, to use that space to push out. So what they can end up doing is going for, let's say, like a crouching medium kick into a drive rush cancel. So let's take a look at the scenario we have with Ken here with the shimmy where he walks forward and back. And what you can do is Rashid or any other character that has the crouching medium kick drive rush. Characters are actually susceptible to this. Opponents are if they're walking back with a shimmy. So what you can do is you can watch them walk forward and back, do a crouching medium kick into drive rush cancel into the rest of your combo. And as you can see there, now you have actually brought them back to near mid-screen. It is costly in the sense that you're going to use 3 bars, but infinitely more preferable to have them mid-screen at that point and be able to go on with the match and not worry about being beaten in the corner and beaten to a pulp. Because the corner is just not the kind of place that you really want to be in this game in general. Your options are very few. There's very little maneuverability. This is a pretty good benefit, low cost, low risk option for trying to get out. Again, particularly for opponents who rely too much on shimmy and fake offense in the corner rather than doing actual oki. This is not going to work for that kind of style, obviously. For people who are pushing buttons on your wake up in the corner and who are doing real oki and real offense, you don't want to be doing this in those cases, or it's going to be painful for you. Yet another really good option on defense is jumping out, particularly when you're facing an opponent who is engaged in throw loop spamming. And so this happens, right? You got, in this case, the Bison, who's just going to do a throw, and he's going to do another throw after throw after throw. What do you do in that situation? Well, jump beats throw, so you can jump out of the corner. Now, obviously, this requires reading your opponent, but that's an important part of the game, right? Actually reacting to what your opponent is doing, which I've been a strong advocate of since I've started doing these videos. So yeah, something to think about too. For opponents who do a lot of shimmying, or they shimmy too much, you can always try and jump out, but you're vulnerable to an anti-air. You're also vulnerable in the case of jumping out if you're trying to avoid throw spam and throw loops of a cross-cut DP, but that's just really sort of the cost cost of doing business if you're trying to jump out of the corner. The idea is that you're going to take that 12% damage if it's a cross-cut DP, and if they punish you, and that's the price that's just paid by getting out of the corner. So that's part of the deal there. So yeah, but always something to keep in mind. The jump out is a viable option in the corner. It's something you should definitely think about when you have opponents who are doing a lot of wayfooling between shimmying and large amount of relying on throws and throw loops. Another option that I think is just okay, I think it's probably not as bad as relying on an OD EX wake up DP or a wake up super, although it's not much better. I actually get to the point where I cycle through a lot of my other options on defense if I'm stuck in the corner. And if a lot of the other stuff that I've tried, like the stuff you've seen so far in this tutorial and commentary, doesn't work, I might consider something like a drive impact, because if you've got an opponent who's pushing buttons in the corner, right? Let's say they throw you, and let's say with Ken here, they're going for some sort of Jim Rye spam and this kind of stuff. It's not necessarily a bad idea to consider using or trying to use a drive impact if you've tried other things to try and get out of that corner. Drive impact is a powerful tool. I'll never blame somebody, especially if they've tried other things first, for doing a drive impact in the corner to try and force themselves out. It may not work, but it does have the advantage over a wake up super or wake up EX DP in terms of the number of options that you can cycle through. With a wake up super or wake up DP, all the opponent has to do sort of walk forward and shimmy and then walk back and block, or do a frame kill to make you think they're going to do Oki and block. All they have to do is block, and then they can punish you, and it's free damage. So it's actually much easier to punish a wake up EXDP or a wake up super than it is to punish a DI. If you're walking back or blocking, whatever kind of block, after, let's say, your fake Oki, if you're doing a frame kill and making them think that you're going to do actual Oki, a meaty, but you're not, you're actually just going to block because you're trying to bait them for a EXDP or a wake up super, you have to push a button, right? If you're the opponent, you have to push a button. You have to push that button for the counter DI in order to actually punish them. And, that requires an extra sort of step. You're already blocking, so it's a lot easier to just block if you think someone's going to do something crazy on wake up, but it's an extra step to be able to actually anticipate and push that button for the counter DI with everything going on in the corner. And you have to actually have pattern recognition there where you're seeing that they're trying to do the DI in the corner. Or just event recognition more like it than anything else if it's the first time they're pushing a DI in the corner. And so, in the range of options that are out there, I would go with a DI first in the corner to try and get out before an EXDP, because it requires more of the opponent. They've got to actually recognize that you're doing it, and they've got to actually push the counter DI, and they've got to do it within the very short amount of time that they have for the DI to hit the counter DI. So in that sense, it's less unsafe than something like a wake up EXDP or a wake up super for you, and it's harder for them to respond to relatively compared to these other options. To be able to react in real time to that drive impact, people obviously train themselves to do it. So it's not a bad technique. It's not horrible to try in the corner if you've tried other things. It may backfire if they're really good at counter DI, but this is one of those things I think it's worth testing out, right? Maybe someone's not very good at counter DIs, and if you don't do DIs a lot randomly and raw in terms of mid-screen or anywhere else, and you just use this as sort of a last resort in the corner, it's not necessarily something that's bad to try, and I think it should be part of your toolkit if you're trying to get out of the corner and some of the safer options have already failed and you're trying to save the round for yourself in the match. A couple other miscellaneous things to take note of. One of those things is when you talk about defense, you want to be careful not to excessively block. The game does punish people for blocking too much. You can see with Rashid here, even though this is just in the lab, this happens in matches. If I do a charge shot into an enhanced EX mixer, follow it up with more pressure, if I've got you pushed to the corner and I'm doing things like a heavy punch into a heavy cyclone, which tends to be pretty safe, right there, right, into more accosting you with another heavy punch, heavy cyclone, this kind of stuff, you can see by this point, I've almost just by doing that, taking you to the corner, and by doing those heavy cyclones, a couple of them and a couple other moves in between, you've already lost like half of your drive gauge. So again, the game does punish people for blocking too much and being too defensive, and this is something you want to keep in mind. A certain amount of blocking is good in terms of seeing if your opponent makes a mistake or punishing and keeping yourself and your health bar preserved from too much damage. But if you get really predictable and you block too much, this is the kind of thing where people will start pushing you, and they'll start throwing you more and more and more, and getting exotic in the way that they throw you, whether it's drive rush into throw or drive rush into tick throw or whatever the case may be. You can block too much, and that is a liability in this game. Last miscellaneous point. When it comes to blocking, blocking is good in this game as long as you're not doing it excessively. Make sure to do a combination of blocking high and low. The meta for this game is people who like to go for crouching medium kicks into drive rush to take you to the corner. It's a very safe technique to do that. People like to do it, even though it costs a decent amount of drive gauge. There's lots of ways to set this up to take people to the corner on crouching medium kick. And if you're not blocking low regularly as part of your blocking strategy, you're really putting yourself at a huge disadvantage in the game in terms of being taken to the corner and being lit up when you're in the corner too. Okay, drills. This is pretty straightforward. You want to tailor your defensive strategy to the drills required for the individual characters you're facing. If you're facing any Honda, you want to go into the lab and you want to drill out perfect parries to the point where you can do 5 of these in a row, 10 of them in a row. This is something you just need to keep drilling out. Butt splats, being able to do the perfect parry numerous times in a row against the Honda. That's just something that you'll just have to figure out the timing for and you can get better at. Same thing with characters like M. Bison, the Psycho Crusher, and being able to do that on command too. The perfect parry can be a really important momentum changer in a round against these characters like M. Bison and Honda. Other drills. This is sort of the really important for how to get better on defense in this game. I think the best tip I could give people in terms of improving on defense is to go into the recordings for Training Room. And let's say you've got M. Bison here, right? And you can go into where it says recording settings, and you can actually go to record, or you can do this by pressing R3, and then it'll say ready, and then you can actually do a recording too. You can just do it sort of ad lib like that, but you can go in here where it says record, and you can do slots. So you can do for slots different things that you want to vary between to work on drills. And then where it says replay, you can actually set it up as on for the replay too. And so what you can do here is you can set up for your first slot, let's say, drive rush. So you set up for the record drive rush into like a heavy punch for M. Bison. And why does that matter? Because once it's set up under your recordings, you can now drill this out. You can practice over and over and over, 5 times in a row, 10 times in a row, doing a drive rush check. And in this case, a really good one with Rashid against Bison and some of the other characters is pushing medium punch because it's so fast into the target combo, medium punch heavy kick, into an EX Cyclone, into the run kicks, into a corner finisher, maybe even a level 1 super. So yeah, this is something, start simple, start easy. Do one defensive technique, drive rush check, put it in the recordings and the replay, and do that one technique over and over and over. Sometimes medium punch into heavy kick doesn't work well for a character. I've noticed, for example, with Ryu, when he does drive rush heavy punch, that it's hard to actually punish that with Rashid's medium punch into heavy kick. So, a lot of this just takes some experimenting in the lab and figuring out what worked with who. If you've got Ryu, for example, here, doing drive rush heavy punch, one thing that I've found that works really good against him if you're far enough away is crouching heavy punch, because you can also cancel that into different supers and other punishes too. So you can do like a level 1, for example. You could do maybe like a level 3. Don't be afraid to experiment a little bit with your drive rush checks to see which buttons work best for playing against which characters when it comes to the drive rush. Obviously, when it comes to drills in the training room, when you're in the lab here, you want to make sure that you're keeping this simple to start. So I mentioned try to consistently check a drive rush 5 times in a row, 10 times in a row, then move on. Set your recordings to your opponent, in this case the CPU, doing a drive impact, and then practice your counter drive impact. Do that 5 times in a row, 10 times in a row, 15, 20 times in a row. That is going to be necessary for getting the muscle memory down for how to protect against this technique. Game mechanic, and also with your anti-airs too, just getting used to the muscle memory of anti-airing over and over and over. Now, this is only going to get you so far because it's going to be really easy in the lab because it's an artificial setting, because you know it's coming, right? So it's not that hard to do 5, 10, 15, 20 anti-airs in a row, 5, 10, 15, 20 DIs in a row, or even 5, 10, 15, 20 drive rush checks in a row. The drills are going to have to get more involved than what I just went through here in order for you to get really good at your defense, but this is sort of step one. When you want to make this more complicated, when you're ready to make it more complicated, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go into those recordings, right? Where it says record and replay, and you're going to want to set up a second option. If your first option is drive rush check, let's say, the second one could be setting up a DI that your opponent is going to do. And they're going to vary between slot 1 and 2, which you're going to activate. So you're going to record for slots 1 and 2, and then you're going to have a replay ready and set on for slots 1 and 2 as well. So in order to keep this simple, you'll want to start with, let's say, you've got these two options, right, with the 1 and 2. You're going to want to keep it to just two things when it comes to what to defend against. So let's say varying between drive impact counters and anti-airs. That's a pretty straightforward thing to do. In any given match, is probably going to be the two main things that people are using. They'll be using drive rush as well, but drive impact and jumping in. And you'll just randomly vary between those if you have slot 1 and 2 running. And so you practice 5 times in a row, 10 times in a row, 15 times in a row, 20 times in a row, trying to consistently counter DI and anti-air and varying between them. If you can get to the point where you're able to do this, let's say 15 times out of 20 effectively, that's good. 17, 18 times in a row effectively varying between the two options and responses, that's really good. And eventually, ideally, maybe being able to do it 20 times out of 20 would be the ultimate goal here. Comfortable with two different options defending against, you want to go into your recordings and replays and program a third slot. And so the logical choice for a third slot is a universal mechanic like the other two. You've got anti-airs, you've got drive impact, counter drive impact, and then you've got drive rush check. So once you feel really comfortable varying effectively and efficiently between anti-airing and counter DIing, then add the drive rush check in as well. And so really the goal at the end of the day here is to be able to effectively 15 times out of 20, 17 times out of 20, 20 times out of 20, be able to, defend against all three of these. So in this case, you're seeing me just sitting in the training room doing the anti-air here first, and then it's programmed to do a DI, then you do the DI. This is all in real time when I was recording this. And then the drive rush check, right? And you never really know what's going to come up, right? It could be 3 drive rush checks in a row. It could be. This is all set on random. You'll just sort of let it play through. You can use the L3 button to start up the recordings, right? And it could be a random, it'll be a random thing, one to the next. Or you could hit the center button. If you're playing on the PlayStation, you can hit the center button, which sort of resets you. But the point is to cycle through the different options. I don't know what the option is on PC for people who do that, but L3 is the option to get it started on the PlayStation. And so for my really quick recording here, you're just seeing I'm cycling through them. You get the anti-air first, the counter DI, the drive rush check. I didn't really know what was coming here. The goal was just to sort of show you what this would look like if you're doing it effectively. Let's say in this case, just to make it quick, 5 times in a row. And you can see that the drive rush check is coming up numerous times in a row, but it is random. So I don't really know what's going to come up in real time as these things are happening. I'm just doing them cycling between the anti-air, the drive rush check, and the counter DI. Okay, so I hope this video was useful in terms of giving people some tips for how to improve your defense, what kind of strategies work better than others when it comes to getting out of the corner and just playing defense in general, and how to use drills in this game systematically to improve your defense related to cycling between counter DI, anti-airing, and drive rush check. So if you like the video, please feel free to leave a comment or comments and give it a like. If you haven't subscribed already and would like to, feel free to do that. Thanks everybody for watching, and I'll see you all on the next video.